Hey everybody, welcome back to Much Mondays, and for today's discussion I want to pose a question to you actually. So we're going to be talking about fandoms, and I'm interested to know what in your fandom, your favorite thing, whether that's a movie or a show or a sport even, whatever it is, the thing that you like the most. What's something about it that you really don't like? What's the one thing about it that really rubs you the wrong way? What is something you maybe even hate? And leave a comment down below with what it is. I'd love to hear, what it is. The reason why is because I've been thinking a lot recently about the idea of what makes you a fan and where does fandom start and end, basically. You see a lot of memes going around like, like you claim to love your grandma but name 5 of her albums, but versions of that where that comes from people saying that could you really call yourself a fan of a band if you're not familiar with their work? If you haven't listened to all of their albums, can you really be a fan of the Beatles if you haven't heard every single one of their studio albums? And I was thinking about this originally in the context of Star Wars, which obviously just had a movie come out that got a kind of mixed reception from a lot of people. And some people jumping off Star Wars, some people saying basically the idea that nobody hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans. And that idea started making me think, what does that mean, really? Why do some Star Wars fans only watch the original trilogy and that's it, and that is Star Wars to them, I had a friend a couple years ago who basically had that attitude. He said he was a diehard Star Wars fan, had posters all around his house, and loved it, and really identified as a Star Wars fan, but did not touch any of the other material, hated the prequel movies, acted like they didn't exist. Some people would question that and say, could you really be a fan if you only like this one particular subset of the thing that you claim to like? Now, in my case, speaking of Star Wars specifically, I recently, a new trailer for the Clone Wars series, the final season of the Clone Wars series came out, and that's a series that I know a lot of people really love, but I never really got into. I think I just sort of missed the boat on when it came out, and I never got into it, and now it's however many seasons long, and it's going to be ending soon. Maybe I'll catch it now, but it's a part of the fandom that I just don't engage with, I think that's fine. I think it's fine to say that you're a big fan of something, that you really identify with something, making it part of your identity. Like, that's really the big key here, is that it's not just liking something, it's the fact that you internalize it, and it is part of your identity. And that's when you really enter into fandoms, and that's when you get into the we just like Star Wars fans jokes. I think it's fine to pick and choose which parts are going to really be part of that identity for you. And in my case with Star Wars, even though I know the Clone Wars is this super popular thing, it's not something that I'm interested in engaging with right now. I know people really love the video games. I know they just had one last fall that came out people really loved. I had it on my list to buy it for a little while, and then just decided I don't really need to play that right now. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's a good time for people that really want to, but it's not something that I feel like messing with. But I still consider myself a Star Wars fan. I still think those movies are hugely formative to me as a moviegoer, as just like a fan of things in general. It really informs my taste. When they re-released A New Hope into theaters in the 90s, it's one of my earliest movie-going memories. So it's always going to be, part of me, even if there are parts of it that I just don't, not even like disliking, just I don't feel like I need to touch that. So it's just I think what it comes down to is when you really enter in that stage where something just goes from being something that you like to you joining a fandom, whether you're actually, actively participating in cons or, message boards where people are talking about it or not, whether it's just a personal thing for yourself, whether you just have pictures of Pokemon up on your walls because you like it so much. When you get to that point, I think it naturally just comes to a point where you as a person has to decide where that fandom starts and ends for you. In the case of, again, Star Wars with the movies, maybe that means you only like the original trilogy. Maybe that means that this last trilogy ended in a different way than it, air quotes, canonically did. If you really hated The Rise of Skywalker, but you really liked The Last Jedi's ending, maybe you personally feel like that was the better ending. And in your mind, that's where the series ends. I've talked to some people that feel that way, that feel like that movie had the better ending and is in their minds the way that the series ended. There was a version of myself in the past that would mock that kind of, totally honestly, would have mocked that kind of attitude, saying like, well, whether you like it or not, the thing exists, you should engage with it and interface with it. Life's too short, all right? If you don't like something and it's a piece of a thing that you really do like, you don't have to mess with it. You don't have to engage with it. It doesn't have to, even if it canonically happened in that universe, and even if you spend so much time and energy and make videos online talking about, the lore of this universe that you're so invested in, you can just drop the pieces you don't like, and so some of you that might seem obvious and something that you practiced before, but if it's the first time that you're hearing something like this, then I'm giving you permission to just let it go and only like the things that you really do like. And that's what I've been thinking about this week. Let me know, again, like I said at the top, what thing in your fandom, maybe you've never thought about it as a fandom before, but I really do think it even extends to like, your favorite sports team. The Super Bowl happened recently. Maybe there's something about football that you really, really hate and just you can't stop thinking about it when you're watching the game, but you try to let it go. I would love to hear about that. So let me know down in the comments. And make sure you come back again next time for the next episode of Much Mondays. Thanks, everybody.